back to another episode of Off the Shelf. I am Elizabeth Nelson, as always, here with Kay Johnson. And Kay, what have you been reading?
Well, that's a really good question, Betsy, because I have been reading, there's a series of books by a guy named Tom Turner, and they're called Palm Beach, like Psycho, Palm Beach this, Palm Beach that. And I don't even know, maybe he's done 10, 12.
Okay.
I don't know. But anyway, there's two detectives, and one is super good looking, and he transferred there from New York. And the other one is Ott, and he's sort of short and squat and the opposite of the good looking one. And they're in Palm Beach where there's not a lot of crime. But there's like a murder once a year or something. And these two get roped into solving it. And it's Charlie Crawford is the good looking one.
Okay.
And so there's a new book coming out like tomorrow maybe or Thursday this week.
Okay.
And it's pretty good. I'm looking forward to it because it's about there's an old garden in Palm Beach. And you might be broke, but you have a good lineage, so you're okay versus
fine.
the new money and no lineage. So the new money decides they want to buy out the club of the old money. Well, the old money is just horrified. I mean, they can't even understand these people. Who are these people? And so I imagine somebody's going to get murdered. And I don't know who yet, but I was able to read a little synopsis of it before. And I was just looking to see what the name of it is. And it's book 18 of his series. And, you know, I have to say these are not deep and moving books. They're pretty easy to figure out. And in fact, the last one I read, it sort of ended, and I was like, oh, it's
My
ended.
favorite thing with, like, cozy mysteries is the fact that I can figure out who did it
long before
the person did it. And I always think, same with cozy mystery, you're like, oh, this little town is so cute. And you're like, but I really don't want to go there because everybody's aunt, uncle, and next door neighbor is getting knocked off.
Yeah.
There was a book that, I have to look up the author of it, but it's, she wrote a book called How to Survive in a Small English Countryside Town, like a murder. So she's taken like all the different, like the procedurals and things like Midsummer Murders and those that have come out of the BBC, and she's put together like a guide to survive if you go to a small English town like this.
Yeah, because you're full of murderers.
Yeah, and so it's like the different people that you'll meet in the town and who to avoid and where not, the buildings you don't go to in the town. And I will look it up for the next time we do a show and have that.
The name of the Tom Turner book that's coming out is The Battle of Palm Beach.
Okay.
And it comes out April 28th, so it's not this week. But on that note, there's a great book coming out this week that I am like super, super excited about. And I don't know, Betsy, if you've ever read any of these, but I think you would really like them because they're just really great books.
Yeah.
But now I can't find it, of course.
Well,
so what have you been reading while I hunt?
I finished one I just kind of came across randomly on my, I think it was Kindle Unlimited, but it's written by Thatcher C. Nally. And the book is called Letters from the Looney Bin.
Ooh.
And so the book is, all of the book is written as a set of letters. And so the place is in the late 1970s, the Emerson Rose Asylum was abandoned. All of the staff, doctors, patients, everybody vanished. And nobody knows what happened to them. So when they're getting ready to go in and demolish the building, somebody finds hidden in a mattress a stack of letters. And the letters are all written to the same doctor, Dr. Quill, who we don't know anything about Dr. Quill, but it's all of the different residents explaining why they're at the asylum and why they're going to rise up against their captors. Because there was a changing of the guard and life at the asylum changed and now they're no longer happy. So they are going to riot. And so the letters are they're written by all the different patients that are going to be involved in this and why they came to the asylum and why they're going to try and break out. So, and the books, and you don't, downside to it, you don't find out what actually happened yet, because I'm pretty sure this guy planned to write a second book and just hasn't yet, which has driven me crazy.
Well, the book, I found the book that I wanted to tell you. It's called Who Will Remember? And it's book 20 of the Sebastian St. Cyr mysteries. They take place in like 1820s in France. And anyway, he is, of course, wealthy, good looking. And the first few books, he's involved with an actress. And then they part ways, and he ends up marrying the daughter of, like, not his worst enemy, but sort of the man behind the king, who's got a lot of power. And Sebastian is actually a detective of sorts. Because the first book, he's accused of murder, which he didn't do, and he has to figure out how to get out of it. And that sort of propels him into the solving cases. And so this book is number 20, and it says a macabre murder of a prominent nobleman throws an already unsettled London into chaos. So it's these are really good, and this one now is August 1860. So they're actually earlier than I thought. They're at during and after the Napoleon's Wars. But if you like history, they're really, really good, and they're well written. And I just really like them. And I was so super excited when I saw, wow, there's one coming out. And this one is coming out April 15th. That's tomorrow, right?
That's
today?
Yesterday.
Oh, my God. I could already
Yes,
have
it's the 16th.
Wow. Oh, yeah, because the taxes were due.
Yes.
I suppose this was supposed to be like balm for the weary or something. Read this great book. And
well, I'm currently reading a book called Fellowship of the Puzzle Makers by Samuel Burr.
Ooh.
So this book, our main characters, well, it goes back and forth in time. So
do you like books that go back and forth in time?
As long as they make sense going back and forth in time. If I can't tell which time period I'm in, then I get a little... But there's a lot of authors now that's kind of the go-to.
Yes.
I can't think of her name now. Kate Martin, right? Kate Martin? Somebody. There's a lot of people that's how they write, and it's usually something in the past ties to the present. Sometimes a little too neatly, but it does do that. But this one, our main guy, his name is Clayton Stumper, and he was found on the doorstep of the Fellowship of Puzzle Makers, and he was raised by the puzzle makers who lived in this house. So the head of it, and then so they basically do we're talking crossword puzzles and board game puzzles and word puzzles. So they all have something different they do. And so he was raised by this group and doesn't know anything really about his mother or where he comes from.
Anything other than puzzles.
So so he's been raised by this group, and the lady that ran the group sort of became like his mother. And so she's passed away, and her name is Pippa, and she has left him clues to try to figure out and unlock who he was and figure it out. And so you're going back and forth between him figuring things out and then Pippa forming this Fellowship of Puzzle Makers. And so it's kind of been interesting that way. I really like a lot of puzzles and crosswords and all that stuff.
Well, you're really good at jigsaw puzzles. You're like a whiz. You can just
it shuts my brain off for a while, which I really like. But it's kind of fun. I've read a few different books where they're about people that do different puzzles or cryptography and stuff like that, which I think is really interesting. I'm not always smart enough to figure that stuff out, but...
No, but you're a real puzzle person, and that must come from your dad, because it's...
I'm not sure what it is.
Can you fold up that test where you take and it's like dotted lines and you fold things up into shapes?
I don't know. I haven't. I'm just kind of more of a spatial reason person.
Yes.
I can look at the shape and know where it is.
Yeah, because that's you would make a good pilot.
No.
Because Jim, your dad told me, I didn't get any right
Yeah.
in the spatial reasoning test. He said, because pilots have to see things in 3D. And I don't have that ability.
I hate flying. Absolutely hate it. I am medicated when I fly so that I can stay on the plane that is hurtling me wherever I'm going. I hate it. Absolutely hate flying. Don't know, and it just randomly happened one time. I think I don't remember when it happened. It must have been after college. I just suddenly began to hate flying.
I think they're sort of disease capsules. I haven't flown for years.
But yeah, no, I don't fly well. And now it's more of a work than it's worth a lot of the time, because now when I travel, we travel with the children. So it's not like you sit down and you can just sit there and read the whole time or whatever. You're entertaining the 8 and the 4-year-old, which can be a lot. But the one thing I always think is interesting is a lot of authors have started doing, when they're at the airport waiting now, they'll go into the little bookstores and they'll sign their books there.
Oh.
And then they'll just post like, hey, I was at Minneapolis Terminal 2 at this bookstore and I signed my books.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, people will just
You know
go and
what
pick
was
them up.
interesting, too, about, on the same token, is Hutch did a play, Population 486, Hutchinson Theater Company.
Yeah.
And the playwright wrote them a letter
Oh.
about that they were doing it and wished them well, and, a little bit. And that was cool. And they also, playwright responded to somebody else, too, and sent a postcard. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's really fun, I think, when you can interact with the different authors you think. I know that, like, on Instagram, Sarah McNeil, who wrote the Maggie Hope book, she follows me on Instagram.
Oh, wow.
She'll like my posts occasionally, which is kind of fun. Like if I post something about the Maggie Hope books, it's like, yay.
Is Maggie Hope done?
She says it's the end of the series, but the way the final book wrapped up, it is left open that Maggie might be going on more adventures, because there are things that people who are still unaccounted for and things like that. So I think if she wanted to, I think she could bring Maggie back. But I think she started writing some other books. And it's been kind of interesting following her, because she kept posting videos of her with her husband. Her husband is a puppet master and does some of the different stuff. And he was talking, and I couldn't figure out why I knew his voice. He's Bear in the Big Blue House from Disney Channel. He's the big bear. That's his voice, because he was on something and he was singing, and I was like, I know that voice. That's the voice from my childhood.
Little did you know.
Yes, I was very excited, so that they just happened to be married.
So did you tell her that you were a big fan of her husband?
I did, and she sent me a smiley face. But it's kind of funny that a lot of the authors are kind of funny with their social media, because I know, like, Rebecca Yarros, who I've talked about, who has the Empyrean System series, where it's the Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, Onyx Storm. She'll post picture of like herself with the Word document, and she'll have like 4 lines on the page, and they'll be really, really small. So you zoom in on it, and it'll be like, I'm not working on that book yet. What are you looking for? Stop. Or it'll be like, I'm not telling you anything. Maybe somebody dies. She'll just do all these little random jokes like that are really funny. And so I think it's interesting, because some authors are more approachable, I think, on social media nowadays, and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for them. But I think it's a lot of fun.
Well, authors used to be, worked in Golden Towers, and you saw their books in a bookstore, and you very seldom saw the author.
Yeah.
And I think that's really changed because of social media, and that they're much more accessible. Plus, that's how they get readers.
Well, and I think it's interesting, too, when I think now a lot of them more talk about, like, their process, like how they work. Like, I know Stephen King has said when he works, every day he has to write, he'll work every day, but every day he has to for sure write 6 pages. Every day. So if he has a 360-page book, that takes him 2 months to write, if he's writing or something like that. So it's like and so he's like, well, that's why, that's my job when I'm writing a book. I work every day on it. It has to be this many pages. And he's like, and so when people wonder why I crank these things out, that is why I crank them out. He's like, unlike, George Martin, who we're still waiting on the end of our Game of Thrones Sword of Ice and Fire or whatever series, and because he doesn't have a set schedule for how or what he writes or anything. So
I've interviewed a lot of authors, and it's interesting that they do treat it as a job. It's not considered a fancy. They have set hours, they have set responsibilities, and so many have to do their own promotion to a big degree. And so I remember talking to somebody who, like, mornings are writing, afternoons are social media. And so an author writing books is just a small portion of the job now compared to what it used to be. And I can't think of his name. He does the Bourne series now, Brian Freeman. I interviewed him. Okay. He gave a talk to McLeod County in Glencoe, and his wife, he writes and she does all the work, the business side. And so when I was setting up my interview, I dealt with her. Then I interviewed him, and any follow-up I did with her.
Nice. Yeah.
And stuff. And so, most of the time it's really easy to work with authors. They love to talk about their work.
Especially if it's the topic they're passionate about.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Aaron Elkin. Aaron Elkin? Is that right, Aaron?
I don't remember.
He's from Mankato, and he's done a series of books, and that's not quite right. There's too many names and books that. Yeah.
I know I had to laugh. We went to the library yesterday, and Archie goes, Mommy don't get books. And I said, Mommy has a stack of books next to her bed and a bookshelf in the living room that have books Mommy hasn't read yet. Mommy can't check out any books right now.
Well, Mommy can't buy any books.
Well, reading books and buying books are two different hobbies.
Oh, okay.
But I liked it. Somebody put it as it's not a bad thing because it's a dream and a hope for the time to take the adventure.
Yeah,
that's how they phrased it.
That's a good way to do it.
I did too. I was like, see, they're just hopes and dreams and trips I haven't gone on yet. They're friends I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
I thought so. Hey, it gives me a reason to say I have to buy this book. It's a trip I can't go on yet. Anything else you have read that you want to talk about?
Oh,
this
yeah.
time?
I'm rereading Robert B. Parker with his Spencer books. And there's like 50 some of those. And not all of them are great, but a lot of them are. And so I really enjoy, and I own a lot of them. So it's not too much of a hardship to find them and reread them. And
Mom, I know, has been rereading all of the cat books by Lillian Jackson Brown. So you have The Cat Who Read Backwards, The Cat Who Saw Ghosts, The Cat Who Ate Danish Modern. And it's... Uh-oh. Silence your cell phone during filming,
I guess
Kay.
I need to.
My goodness.
Nobody ever calls me, especially during a taping.
Yes. Well, if people aren't familiar with Lillian Jackson Brown's The Cat Who series, the main character in this book, well, I think the cats are the main character, but the main character, his name is Jim Quillerin, owner of a very fancy mustache, from what I remember. And they never say for sure, but the consensus is they take place in northern Minnesota, from what I've heard.
I think so. It's like lower and upper.
Yeah, down below is what they call where the big town is, and then where they all live. But I think when you read about it, it sounds like northern Minnesota. And he is the owner of two Siamese cats named Coco, who is the male cat, and Yum Yum, who is the precocious little female Siamese cat. And with the help of the cats, he solves all the murders that happen, because that's what happens when you start these series. Murders pop up in tiny towns.
Yes, that's right.
And the one thing I will say about this series, don't read them without a snack, because they are always eating. The food is always fantastic, or they're making drinks. But I mean, it's one of those books that you fall in love with the characters and get to know them, and
Yeah.
the cats are adorable.
Yeah, they are. And Quilleran's a great guy too, because he's a writer and
Because at the beginning of the series, he's a newspaper
right.
writer, and then,
he moves to.
well, he inherits a huge fortune,
Yes.
and it moves up above, or whatever they call it in the book series. So,
Yes.
but they're really great series. There's a ton of them, and they're not super long. I always liked The Cat Who Saw Stars because he's up somewhere on vacation, and it's UFOs or
Yes.
aliens, and that's kind of interesting. And then I think there's probably a drug dealer at some point too. But the cat, they're staying at this cabin that they're renting, and Coco starts doing weird things, like he's climbing the rafters, or he's biting, leaving teeth marks in different things. And basically the things he's leaving teeth marks in are kind of the clues that give Quilleran what to solve, because Coco, the Siamese cat, knows all and will
Yes.
solve the mystery for us. And he really does. The majority of the time he is involved in doing it. So
When you talk about books and food, Lawrence Sanders wrote a series of books, First Deadly Sin, Second Deadly Sin, and the detective Delaney has dry sandwiches and wet sandwiches he makes. And these are like complicated sandwiches. And the wet one he eats over the sink.
yes.
And the other one he eats at the table, I think.
So I have that all the time. A lot of people have ways they do that, but if they're eating in a book, if they're making cookies, I want a cookie.
Yeah.
If they're eating steak, I now have to make a steak at some point, which can be expensive. But what about you? Do you have anything that you have from reading a book? Do you need a snack or a cup of tea? Write to us and let us know, either on Facebook or at our email, offtheshelfbooktalk@gmail.com, and let us know, because we've reached the end of our time this week.
Wow.
And we will see you next time.